The Galactic Empire's diplomats walked through Earth's orbital shipyards with barely hidden smiles. They looked at the ships like adults might look at a child's drawing. Admiral Park kept his face calm, but inside he felt anger as he watched the aliens study Earth's best ship. The alien called Delegate Kron moved closer to the Phoenix, Earth's newest warship. His outer shell was dark blue, and his four arms gestured as he spoke. The clicking sound of his mouthparts showed he found Earth's technology amusing. "This is your most advanced warship?" Kron asked, his mandibles moving in what humans had learned was laughter. Admiral Park stood straight in his blue uniform, decorated with medals from his years of service. "The Phoenix represents our best technology," he said calmly. Kron ran one of his clawed hands along the ship's hull. "Charming," he said. "Our civilian transports possessed similar capabilities 4 centuries ago." The other 5 aliens in the delegation made similar clicking sounds. One of them, taller than the rest with green skin patterns, took readings with a small device that seemed to float above his palm. "Primitive propulsion system," the tall alien said. "Inefficient use of energy. Weapons that would barely damage our shield systems." Admiral Park exchanged glances with Captain Sue, who stood beside him. They had expected this reaction. The Phoenix was impressive by Earth standards, a kilometer-long vessel with the most advanced missiles and laser systems humans had ever built. But to the Galactic Empire, a coalition of thousands of species that had been traveling between stars for millennia, Earth's best was hardly worth notice. "Perhaps you would like to see our defensive systems," Admiral Park offered. "No need," Kron said, waving a dismissive hand. "We've seen enough to understand your capabilities. The Empire appreciates your transparency. It will make our relationship much smoother." The way he said relationship made it clear what he meant. Earth would do what the Empire wanted. There was no question of equal partnership. Later that day, deep beneath the city of Seoul, Earth's Defense Council gathered in a secure room. 20 men and women sat around a large table, faces grave under the harsh lights. Maps and data screens covered the walls, showing the positions of the Imperial ships now orbiting Earth. Director Kim, head of Earth's Space Defense Agency, stood at the front of the room. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly, and her expression was serious as she addressed the council. "They're demanding 30% of our rare minerals and exclusive rights to our lunar territories," she announced. "This is just the beginning." Their ambassador made it clear that these demands will increase as our integration into the Empire progresses. Murmurs filled the room. General Wu slammed his fist on the table. "Integration. They mean conquest. They're just taking what they want without firing a shot because they know we can't stop them. Our combined military forces wouldn't last an hour against even one of their smaller vessels," Admiral Park said. "You all saw the scans. Their technology is centuries beyond ours." In the back of the room, Commander Lee Jin-ho listened quietly. He was younger than most others present, only 42, with sharp eyes and a mind that had earned him his position despite his age. As head of Earth's classified Project Prometheus, he knew something the Empire didn't. Jin-ho's team had been working in secret for 3 years, ever since astronomers first detected the Empire's approach. They had developed technology that didn't just improve on existing systems, it broke the Empire's understanding of physics itself. Admiral Park left his seat and walked to where Jin-ho stood. The two men moved to a corner of the room where they wouldn't be overheard. "How much time do you need?" Park asked quietly. Jin-ho ran calculations in his head. The prototype was working in tests, but scaling it up to a full vessel, training a crew, running combat simulations, all of it needed time. 6 months, Jin-ho replied. "Maybe less." Admiral Park's face showed doubt. "The Empire is pushing for immediate compliance. I don't think we have 6 months." "Then we'll have to make them give us time," Jin-ho said. "The physics behind Prometheus isn't just new. It's impossible according to their science. They've been the dominant power for so long that they've stopped looking for new discoveries. That's our advantage." Jin-ho pulled out a small tablet and showed Park the latest test results. "See this. We've managed to create a field that doesn't just deflect energy. It captures it. The stronger their attack, the more power we absorb." Park studied the data. And you're sure this works against their weapons? We've analyzed the energy signatures from their engines and weapons systems. Our field is specifically designed to resonate with their technology. For the first time that day, Admiral Park's expression lightened slightly. How soon can you show me a demonstration? Come to the facility tomorrow. We're running a full-scale test at 800. As they rejoined the main group, Director Kim was outlining the Empire's demands in more detail. Earth would be classified as a protected resource world, which meant they would receive basic Imperial protection in exchange for resources and complete compliance with Imperial regulations. These regulations include restrictions on our technology development, Kim explained. We would be barred from advancing our space capabilities beyond approved levels. They don't want competition, Jin-Ho said, speaking up for the first time. All eyes turned to him. They're afraid of what humans might become. Director Kim frowned. Commander Lee, the Empire has no reason to fear us. They're millennia ahead of our technology. That's not the point, Jin-Ho replied. Humans adapt. We innovate when backed into corners. The Empire doesn't do that anymore. They've been on top so long they've forgotten how to evolve. He stepped forward, suddenly filled with certainty. That's why Prometheus will work. Not because it's more powerful, but because it's different. It approaches problems in ways they've never considered. Admiral Park placed a hand on Jin-Ho's shoulder. Commander Lee's project may give us options we didn't have before. I'm authorizing additional resources for Prometheus effective immediately. As the meeting continued, Jin-Ho's mind was already racing ahead, planning modifications and improvements. The Empire thought Earth was just another primitive world to be harvested. They saw the Phoenix and laughed. They wouldn't be laughing when they met Prometheus. The Imperial envoy's four-fingered hand slammed down on the polished table. The sound echoed through the meeting room, making several human diplomats jump. The alien skin was a deep purple, and anger made the color darken even further around his neck ridges. Your delays are unacceptable. The Galactic Empire grows impatient, he said, voice translator converting his natural clicks and whistles into harsh English. We have given you 30 Earth days to begin resource transfers. That time ends tomorrow. Director Kim sat across from him, her hands folded calmly on the table. Unlike her colleagues, she didn't flinch at the display of anger. She had been dealing with the Imperial representatives since their arrival, and she had learned that showing fear only encouraged their demands. We're simply requesting additional time to prepare our resources for transfer, she replied. Mining operations need to be expanded to meet your quotas without causing economic collapse on our world. The envoy's eyes narrowed. They were yellow with no pupils, and seemed to glow when he was angry. Your economic concerns are not our problem. The treaty you signed clearly states the terms. A treaty signed under threat is hardly fair, said General Wu from his seat beside Director Kim. The envoy turned his gaze to the general. Fair. You mistake the situation, human. This is not a negotiation between equals. Your world has been categorized as a resource-class planet. You should be grateful we don't simply take what we need. Director Kim spoke before Wu could respond. We understand the Empire's position. We need just 30 more days to prepare the first shipment properly. The envoy stood up, towering over the humans. He was nearly 7 feet tall, with a thin frame that somehow still projected strength. You have 7 days. After that, we will begin extraction ourselves. He walked toward the door, but stopped before leaving. And know this, any attempt to hide or protect resources will be met with immediate penalties. The door slid shut behind him. The room remained silent for several seconds. He can't do that, Wu said finally. The agreement was for us to handle our own extraction. Director Kim sighed. They can do whatever they want, General. That's the reality we're facing. She tapped her communication device. Get me Commander Lee. I need to know how close they are. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, nearly a kilometer below the surface, Earth had built its most secret installation. From the outside, it appeared to be a standard research platform studying deep-sea thermal vents. Below the visible structure, however, stretched a vast complex cut into the ocean floor itself. In the heart of this hidden facility, Commander Lee Jin-ho stared at the massive holographic display showing their prototype ship. The real vessel was housed in the enormous hangar next door, but the simulation let them test systems without risking the actual hardware. "Run it again," Jin-ho said, rubbing his tired eyes. Chief Engineer Yoon nodded and reset the simulation. Yoon was shorter than Jin-ho but broader in the shoulders. His fingers moved quickly over the control panel. "Starting test sequence 47, Yoon announced. On the display, a virtual version of their ship, the Prometheus, engaged its unique propulsion system. The simulation showed energy patterns flowing around the hull in beautiful blue waves. For 3 seconds, everything worked perfectly. Then red warning lights flashed as the patterns became chaotic and unstable. The spatial inversions are still unpredictable," Yoon said, gesturing to the simulation. "If the containment field fails during transition." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Both men knew what would happen. At best, the ship would lose power. At worst, the energy backlash would destroy the vessel and everyone aboard. Jin-ho walked closer to the display, studying the patterns of collapse. Something about the way the field broke down seemed familiar. "Show me the scans we took of the Imperial ships again," he said. Yoon pulled up another display. It showed the energy signatures of the Imperial vessels currently orbiting Earth. Their engines produced a distinctive frequency pattern that Earth's scientists had been studying carefully. Jin-ho looked back and forth between the two displays, then suddenly straightened. "What about using the resonance patterns we observed in their ships?" he asked. "If we calibrate to their frequency." Yoon's eyes widened as he grasped the idea. "Their own technology becomes the stabilizing element," he exclaimed, already typing commands into the system. "It's brilliant. We use their energy signature as a framework for our field." The simulation ran again. This time, the Prometheus's energy field pulsed in harmony with the Imperial frequency pattern. The dangerous instabilities disappeared, and the ship successfully completed its transition. "It works," Yoon whispered. "We're using their own technology against them." Jin-ho allowed himself a small smile. They'd been using the same basic principles for their ships for centuries. They've refined it, made it more powerful, but the fundamental frequency hasn't changed. They had no reason to change something that worked so well. "Until now," Yoon said. Jin-ho's communication device beeped. He tapped it to answer. "Commander Lee here." Director Kim's voice came through. "How close are you to completion?" "We've just had a breakthrough. I think we can have the Prometheus ready for a test flight in 5 days." "You have too," Kim replied. "The Empire has cut our timeline. They're threatening to start taking resources themselves if we don't begin shipments in 7 days." Jin-ho and Yoon exchanged worried glances. "Director, we need more time." "The systems are still." 2 days, Commander. "That's all I can give you. Make it work." The connection ended. Yoon ran his hands through his hair. 2 days isn't enough. We need to run at least a dozen more simulations, then test each system individually before. We don't have time for the full protocol. Jin-ho interrupted. "Get everyone working in shifts. No breaks. I want the Prometheus ready to fly in 48 hours. As Yoon hurried off to organize the teams, Jin-ho studied the simulation again. The Prometheus was humanity's only hope. If it failed, Earth would become just another conquered world in the Empire's vast collection. His communication device beeped again with an emergency alert. A message from Earth's orbital defense network appeared on the screen. Jin-ho read it and felt his blood run cold. He immediately called Director Kim. "Did you see the alert?" he asked when she answered. "Yes," she said, her voice tight. "The Empire isn't waiting. They've called in a battle group from their nearby sector. 6 warships and a command vessel will arrive in 2 days. Why? We still have time according to their deadline. They claim it's a precautionary deployment, in case we don't comply. In reality, I think they've detected unusual energy signatures. They might suspect we're developing something." Jin-ho closed his eyes briefly. "We'll be ready," he said, though he wasn't sure if he believed it. 2 days later, the research platform's sensors detected multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. The Imperial Battle Group had arrived, 7 massive ships that dwarfed anything humans had built. Earth had run out of time. Water cascaded down the hull of the Prometheus as it rose from its underwater hangar. The ship broke the surface of the Pacific Ocean, sending waves outward in all directions. Unlike the large, bulky warships Earth had built before, the Prometheus was sleek and relatively small, just 300 meters long with a smooth, dark gray exterior that absorbed rather than reflected light. Jin-Ho stood on the bridge, watching through the main viewport as seawater streamed off the ship's surface. The sky above was clear blue, but he knew what waited beyond Earth's atmosphere. 7 Imperial warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Final system check, Jin-Ho ordered, his voice steady despite the tension filling the bridge. The crew, just 25 men and women, the smallest number needed to operate the ship, moved with quick efficiency at their stations. They had trained together for months, but only in simulators. This was their first time on the actual bridge of the Prometheus. Navigation systems green, reported Officer Han. He was the youngest crew member at just 24, but his skills at calculating spatial trajectories were unmatched. Life support functioning at optimal levels, said Medical Officer Kang from her station. Propulsion ready, added Engineer Yoon, who had barely slept in the past 2 days. The resonance patterns are holding steady. Weapons primed and ready, confirmed Tactical Officer Song, a former fighter pilot whose calm under pressure had earned her this position. Though I still don't fully understand what I'm controlling. Jin-Ho didn't blame her for the confusion. The Prometheus didn't have conventional weapons. No missiles, no lasers, nothing that would make sense to a traditional military mind. Communications are active, reported Officer Min. We're receiving multiple hails from the Imperial fleet. They're demanding we identify ourselves. Jin-Ho took a deep breath and settled into the commander's chair at the center of the bridge. The chair adjusted to his form, displays lighting up around him. Take us up, he ordered. Steady ascent pattern. Let them get a good look at us. The Prometheus rose into the sky, its experimental engines remarkably quiet compared to traditional rockets. There was no flame, no thunderous roar, just a slight vibration as the ship climbed through the atmosphere. In orbit above Earth, the Imperial Battle Group had arranged itself in a standard attack formation. 6 destroyer-class vessels surrounded a much larger command ship. Their hulls gleamed gold and silver in the sunlight, covered with elaborate designs that spoke of an empire confident enough to value aesthetics alongside function. We've cleared the atmosphere, Han announced, holding position at 300 kilometers. Jin-Ho nodded. Broadcast on all frequencies, he ordered. Visual and audio. Channel open, Min confirmed. The main screen at the front of the bridge flickered to life, showing the interior of the Imperial command ship. Their bridges were extravagant compared to human designs. High ceilings, ornate control stations, officers in elaborate uniforms with multiple insignia denoting rank and accomplishments. The Imperial commander sat on a raised platform at the center. His species had blue-tinted skin with ridged foreheads and 3 pairs of eyes arranged vertically. When he spoke, his mouth moved in ways that seemed unnatural to human perception. You launch a single vessel? The commander asked, his translated voice filled with amusement. Is this your surrender ship? Jin-Ho met the alien's gaze steadily. Not exactly, he replied calmly. This is us giving you one chance to leave our system peacefully. For a moment, the Imperial commander stared in apparent disbelief. Then the broadcast expanded to show more of the Imperial bridge. The alien officers were laughing, some pointing at the screen displaying the Prometheus. Your primitive vessel will make an excellent demonstration, the commander said once he'd regained composure. He turned to his officers. All ships target the Earth vessel. Low-power weapons only. I want them disabled, not destroyed. Yet, on the Prometheus, tactical displays showed multiple weapon locks engaging from all 7 Imperial ships. They're targeting us with what appear to be ion cannons, Song reported, her fingers moving across her console. Impact in 10 seconds. Jin-Ho felt a momentary doubt. Everything they had worked for came down to this moment. If their calculations were wrong, if the resonance patterns failed, the Prometheus would be disabled or destroyed in seconds. Shields? Jinho asked. We don't have conventional shields, Yoon reminded him. The inversion field is our only defense. Jinho nodded. All crew secure for possible impact. He paused, then gave the order they had trained for. Activate inversions. Yoon pressed a sequence of commands. Deep within the Prometheus, the experimental core activated. It wasn't like any power source humans had used before. Instead of generating energy, it created a field designed to capture and redirect energy. Specifically, the energy used by Imperial technology. Inversion field active, Yoon confirmed. Holding stable at 20% capacity. On the view screen, the Imperial commander leaned forward, looking confused. His sensors would be showing something impossible, a field unlike any defensive system known to the Empire. What trick is this? He demanded. No matter. Increase power to weapons. Full barrage. The space around the Prometheus lit up as dozens of energy weapons fired simultaneously. Beams of blue, green, and red energy streaked toward the Earth ship from all directions. Impact in 3 seconds, Song warned. Brace. Jinho gripped the arms of his command chair. Hold steady, he told his crew. This is what we built her for. The energy beams reached the Prometheus, and then something remarkable happened. Instead of striking the hull or being deflected, the beams seemed to curve and flow around the ship. The energy didn't disappear. Rather, it was absorbed into the inversion field, which began to glow with increasing brightness. Inversion field holding, Yoon reported, wonder in his voice. Power levels rising. 40%, 50%, 65% capacity, and climbing. On the view screen, the Imperial commander was shouting orders. The translation came through in fragments. Impossible. Increase power. Full weapons. The Imperial ships fired again, this time with their main cannons. These weapons were designed to shatter planetary defenses. Against a ship as small as the Prometheus, they should have been overkill. The energy struck the inversion field, and again was absorbed rather than dealing damage. The field now glowed so brightly that the Prometheus appeared to be surrounded by a small sun. Field at 90% capacity, Yoon warned. We can't absorb much more. Jinho had prepared for this moment. Begin energy conversion sequence, he ordered. Prepare for counterstrike. Officer Song looked nervous but determined as she activated systems that had never been used outside simulation. Conversion sequence initiated, standing by for target selection. Jinho studied the tactical display. The Imperial ships had arranged themselves in a standard formation that hadn't changed in centuries, because it had never needed to. They had always been the most powerful force in any conflict. Target their command ship, Jinho decided. Minimal power, just enough to demonstrate what we can do. Song nodded and made the adjustments. Ready. Jinho opened the communication channel again. The Imperial commander appeared on screen, now looking concerned rather than amused. What technology is this? He demanded. Identify the source immediately. It's human technology, Jinho replied simply. Something we developed because we had to. You should have left us alone. Before the commander could respond, Jinho gave the order. Release pulse. 20% power only. The brilliant energy surrounding the Prometheus suddenly concentrated into a focused beam that shot toward the Imperial command ship. The beam wasn't like normal weapons fire. It moved in ways that defied normal physics, shifting and curving as if alive. When it reached the Imperial ship, it passed through their shields as if they weren't there. The beam wasn't designed to destroy, merely to disable. It struck with precision, targeting power systems that the Prometheus had identified from its scans. The lights on the Imperial command ship flickered and died. Its weapons went dark. The communication screen filled with static before cutting out entirely. Direct hit, Song reported, sounding surprised. Their main power grid is offline. Life support appears functional, but weapons and propulsion are disabled. The 6 remaining Imperial ships adjusted their positions, clearly uncertain how to respond to this unprecedented threat. Open channel to all Imperial vessels, Jinho ordered. When the channel was ready, he spoke clearly. This was a demonstration. We could have destroyed your command ship, but chose not to. Return to your territory and inform your leaders that Earth is not available for colonization or resource extraction. For several tense moments, there was no response. Then one of the Imperial captains appeared on screen. "This is not over, human," the captain said. "The Empire does not forget or forgive acts of rebellion." "Neither do we," Jin Ho replied. "Remember that." The Imperial ships began to retreat, moving to assist their disabled command vessel. As they withdrew, Jin Ho felt the tension on the bridge give way to cautious celebration. "We did it," Yoon said, his voice filled with disbelief. "It actually worked." Jin Ho nodded but remained focused. "This is just the beginning," he said. "They'll be back, and with more ships next time." He turned to his crew, who were watching him with a mixture of pride and uncertainty. "We've bought ourselves time," he told them. "Now we need to use it wisely." 3 weeks had passed since the Prometheus had faced down the Imperial ships. Earth had used this time wisely. The technology behind the Prometheus had been shared with all nations, and production facilities around the world worked day and night to build more ships with the same capabilities. Jin Ho stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, which had been upgraded with newer, more powerful systems. The crew moved with confidence now, having trained extensively since their first encounter. "Imperial fleet detected," Officer Min announced from the communication station. Long-range sensors show 37 ships entering the solar system. Jin Ho wasn't surprised. They had expected this response. The Empire had existed for thousands of years by crushing any resistance quickly and completely. "How many of our ships are ready?" Jin Ho asked. "Just 3, Yoon replied. "The Artemis, the Osiris, and us. The others need at least 2 more weeks." Jin Ho nodded. 3 ships against 37. The odds weren't good, even with their special technology. "Alert the other captains," he ordered. "Formation Alpha. We meet them at Jupiter's orbit. We don't let them get close to Earth." The 3 Earth ships moved into position near Jupiter, its massive gas clouds providing a dramatic backdrop for what was about to happen. The Imperial fleet approached in perfect formation, a wall of massive warships that stretched for kilometers. "They're sending a message," Min reported. Jin Ho nodded. "Put it on screen." The main screen showed a different Imperial commander this time. This one had darker skin with golden patterns that indicated higher rank. "This is Grand Admiral Vorex of the Imperial Armada," the alien said. "Your act of rebellion cannot be tolerated. Surrender now, and some of your people may be spared." Jin Ho looked at his crew before responding. They all gave him determined nods. "This is Commander Lee of Earth Defense," Jin Ho replied. "We will not surrender. This is our home, and we will defend it." The Grand Admiral's face showed no emotion. "Very well. You have been warned." The screen went dark. Moments later, the Imperial fleet began to move. "They're spreading out," Song reported from Tactical. "Trying to surround us." Jin Ho had expected this. "Tell Artemis and Osiris to maintain formation. Maximum inversion field power. Let them make the first move." The Imperial ships continued their approach, moving with the precision of a force that had conquered thousands of worlds. When they reached optimal firing range, every ship released a barrage of energy weapons simultaneously. The space around Prometheus shimmered as the first Imperial volley struck. Rather than exploding, the ship seemed to absorb the energy, its hull glowing with increasing brightness. The same happened with the Artemis and Osiris. All 3 Earth ships began to glow like small suns. Containment holding at 87%. Yoon called out, monitoring the systems closely. "Resonance matching is working." Jin Ho watched the tactical display as the Imperial fleet continued firing. They seemed confused by the lack of damage, firing more and more powerful weapons. The Imperial commander's confused face appeared again on screen. "What trickery is this? Fire all weapons." Jin Ho couldn't help but smile slightly. The Empire had never encountered a force that could turn their own power against them. The assault intensified, but with each blast, Prometheus only grew more radiant until it pulsed with captured energy. The Artemis and Osiris glowed just as brightly. The vacuum of space, normally dark and empty, now blazed with light. They've never had to innovate, Jin Ho said quietly to Yoon, who stood beside his command chair. They've relied on overwhelming force for so long they've forgotten how to adapt. Yoon nodded in agreement, but his face showed concern as he checked the readings. Inversions at maximum capacity, he reported. We can't absorb much more. Jin Ho received similar reports from the other two Earth ships. It was time. All ships, coordinate targeting, Jin Ho ordered. Prometheus will take the center of their formation. Artemis, target the left flank. Osiris, target the right. Tactical Officer Song's fingers flew over her console. Targets locked. Jin Ho nodded. Release the counterpulse. The energy Prometheus had absorbed erupted outward in a precisely calculated wave, matching the exact frequency of Imperial shields, passing through them as if they weren't there and shorting out their systems. The Artemis and Osiris released their stored energy at the same moment. 3 massive waves of energy spread across space, engulfing the Imperial fleet. Ship after ship went dark or exploded as their own energy was turned against them. The larger vessels with more powerful shields lasted longer, but eventually they too succumbed. The Empire had never designed their ships to withstand their own weapons. Why would they need to? 15 Imperial ships disabled, Song reported, her voice rising with excitement. 20 destroyed. The remaining vessels are attempting to retreat. Target their engines, Jin Ho ordered. Don't let them escape. The 3 Earth ships released smaller, more focused pulses, disabling the engines of the fleeing Imperial vessels. All Imperial ships have been neutralized, Song announced finally. No remaining threats detected. A cheer went up from the crew. Jin Ho allowed them this moment of celebration, but his mind was already focused on the next steps. Open communication channels to all disabled Imperial ships, he ordered when the cheering subsided. A moment later, the face of Grand Admiral Vorex appeared on screen. His ship had been damaged, but not destroyed. The bridge around him was dark, lit only by emergency lighting. Several of his officers appeared injured. What do you want, human? Vorex asked, his voice tense. I want you to deliver a message to your emperor, Jin Ho said. Earth is now a sovereign world, not to be approached or threatened by Imperial forces. We will share this technology with any world seeking freedom from Imperial rule. Vorex's eyes narrowed. You cannot stand against the full might of the Empire. What you faced today was merely a fraction of our forces. Jin Ho leaned forward in his chair. Then send more ships. The result will be the same. Your technology cannot harm us. It only makes us stronger. How many defeats will the Empire tolerate before its subject worlds realize you are not invincible? For the first time, uncertainty showed on the Grand Admiral's face. The Empire's power had always been based on fear and technological superiority. If word spread that a primitive world had defeated an Imperial fleet, other conquered worlds might be inspired to resist. The Emperor will not forget this, Vorex said finally. Good, Jin Ho replied. We want him to remember. Now we will allow your remaining ships to leave once repairs are complete. Spread the word. The age of the Empire is ending. After the communication ended, Jin Ho turned to his crew. Their faces showed a mixture of pride, exhaustion, and disbelief at what they had accomplished. What happens now? Officer Han asked from the navigation station. Jin Ho looked out at the stars beyond the viewport. Now we prepare. The Empire won't give up easily. But we've proven something important today, not just to them, but to ourselves. That humanity can stand on its own. Yoon suggested. Jin Ho shook his head. That innovation beats stagnation. The Empire stopped growing, stopped changing, stopped adapting. They thought they had reached perfection. He stood up from his command chair. Our journey is just beginning. We have a galaxy of possibilities ahead of us. As the Prometheus turned back toward Earth, the crew could see their home planet in the distance, a blue marble hanging in the blackness of space. For the first time in months, it wasn't overshadowed by Imperial ships. It was, at least for now, free. The massive meeting hall on the neutral planet Altera had once been an Imperial governor's palace. Now it served as the gathering place for the newly formed Galactic Council. The high ceilings and ornate walls still showed imperial designs, but new banners hung from the rafters, representing 24 worlds that had declared independence from the Empire. Jinho walked slowly to the center of the circular speaking floor. 6 months had passed since the battle that changed everything. 6 months of rapid change across hundreds of worlds as news spread of how Earth had defeated the Empire's fleet. Jinho wore a simple blue uniform with no medals or fancy decorations. Around him sat representatives from many alien species. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had multiple eyes or skin in colors humans had never evolved. Yet despite their differences, they all watched Jinho with the same expression. Hope. Thank you for coming, Jinho began. His voice was amplified so all could hear, with translation devices converting his words into 24 different languages simultaneously. 6 months ago, Earth was just another world facing imperial control. Today, we stand as equals with all of you. The representatives nodded. Many of their worlds had been under imperial rule for centuries or even millennia. Earth's resistance had inspired them to break free too. The principles behind Prometheus aren't secret anymore, Jinho explained, using simple terms so the translations would be accurate. We've shared the technology with all of you because we believe in balance, not dominance. He gestured to the display behind him, showing the technical details of how the Prometheus worked. The Empire's weapons produced energy at specific frequencies. The Prometheus and the ships built using its technology could absorb this energy and turn it back against them. Already, 27 worlds have built their own defense vessels using these principles. Jinho continued. No single world, not even Earth, controls this technology. It belongs to all free peoples. A tall, thin alien with gray skin and large black eyes stood up. The Centauri Federation thanks Earth for sharing this knowledge freely. Our world suffered under imperial taxation for 300 years. Now we determine our own future. Others voiced similar gratitude. Jinho nodded in acknowledgement, but kept his expression serious. We face challenges ahead. The Empire still controls thousands of worlds. Their resources are vast. At the mention of the Empire, eyes turned to a section of seats separated slightly from the others. There sat the Imperial delegation, their once elaborate uniforms now simpler, their posture less proud. The defeat of their fleets had forced the Empire to negotiate with worlds they once ruled. The lead Imperial representative stood. He was of the same species as Admiral Vorex, but his skin patterns showed even higher rank. The Empire recognizes the changed situation in this sector, he said, his translator making his clicks and whistles into smooth speech. We propose a more balanced relationship moving forward. Jinho noticed how carefully the Imperial representative chose his words. Not equality, but more balanced, suggesting the Empire still saw itself as superior. The Imperial representative continued. The Empire proposes a full alliance with Earth and offers command of our third fleet as a gesture of respect. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The offer was significant. The third fleet included over 100 warships. It would give Earth tremendous power. Jinho shook his head. We're not interested in commanding your fleets or joining your hierarchy. What we want is a new start, a cooperative where all species contribute their unique perspectives. He turned to address the entire council. Earth doesn't seek to replace the Empire as a dominant power. We believe each world should govern itself, with the council serving only to resolve disputes and coordinate mutual defense. The Imperial representative's face showed brief confusion. In their thousands of years of history, the Empire had never encountered a species that gained power and then refused to use it for dominance. You would turn down command of our fleet? He asked. The Empire rarely makes such generous offers. It's not generosity, Jinho replied calmly. It's an attempt to maintain the old system with new leaders. We reject that system entirely. A small blue-skinned alien with 4 arms stood up from her seat. Jinho recognized her as the representative from Proxima, a world that had suffered particularly harsh imperial rule. The Proxima representative leaned forward. And if the Empire refuses your terms, if they rebuild their fleets with new weapons our technology cannot counter. The question hung in the air. Many of the representatives looked nervous. The empire had ruled for thousands of years. Could it really be overthrown so quickly? Jin-Ho met the Proxima representative's gaze steadily. Then they'll find that Prometheus was just our first innovation, he replied. Not our last. He turned to the imperial delegation. Humanity had to develop Prometheus because you threatened our world. Don't force us to develop more weapons. Join us as equals instead, and we can all benefit from peaceful cooperation. For several long moments, the hall was silent. Then, slowly, the imperial representative nodded. I will convey your position to the emperor. But I must warn you, change comes slowly to a civilization as old as ours. We're patient, Jin-Ho replied. But the free worlds will not wait forever. The council session continued for several more hours as representatives discussed trade agreements, defense pacts, and aid for worlds damaged by imperial withdrawal. Jin-Ho participated actively, but his mind was already turning to the future. When the session finally ended, the representatives broke into smaller groups, chatting and forming connections that would have been impossible under imperial rule. Jin-Ho walked toward the large windows overlooking the spaceport where dozens of ships from different worlds sat side by side. Officer Song approached him, holding a communication device. Her role had expanded since the battle. She now served as Jin-Ho's chief advisor on defense matters. The home fleet is asking about our next mission, she said. 5 new Prometheus-class ships are ready for deployment. Jin-Ho looked out at the stars visible beyond the planet's atmosphere. For thousands of years, the Empire had controlled which worlds could be visited, which trade routes could be used, which species could contact each other. Tell them we're going exploring, he said. There's a whole galaxy out there that's only been seen through Imperial eyes. I think it's time for a fresh perspective. Song smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Where should we start? Jin-Ho pointed to a star map displayed on a nearby screen. These systems here, beyond the Orion Arm, the Empire classified them as non-viable and never fully explored them. Why would they ignore entire systems? Song asked. Because they didn't fit the Imperial pattern, Jin-Ho explained. The Empire only valued worlds that could provide resources or strategic positions. They missed countless opportunities because they only looked for what they already knew. He turned away from the window. Around the room, humans and aliens were talking together, sharing ideas and stories. Species that had been kept apart by imperial decree were discovering their common interests and unique differences. That was always their weakness, Jin-Ho continued. They stopped looking for new possibilities. They stopped adapting. In the end, that's why they couldn't defeat us. Not because our technology was better, but because our thinking was different. Song nodded in understanding. When do we leave? 1 week, Jin-Ho replied. I want representatives from at least 5 different worlds on each ship. True exploration should include multiple perspectives. As they walked out of the council chamber, Jin-Ho took one last look at the gathered representatives. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years. In just 6 months, that rule had begun to crumble, not through conquest, but through cooperation. The path ahead wouldn't be easy. The Empire still held vast territories and resources. Some worlds, comfortable under imperial rule, resisted change. But for the first time in millennia, the galaxy had a choice. Jin-Ho smiled as he headed toward the spaceport. Humanity's journey among the stars was just beginning, and it promised to be an adventure unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The end